Welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm Ben Data, co-chair of DSW. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of Denver Startup Week. This community has been the catalyst for lots of change over the past decade, and this week we're coming together to celebrate the past and dream big for the future. We are able to bring Denver Startup Week to this community thanks to our 2021 sponsors. Thank you to our HQ and title sponsor, Amazon, and our title sponsors, whose leadership makes this week come to life. Capital One Cafe, Downtown Denver Partnership, Fluid Truck, Hotel Engine, and WeWork. And our track sponsors, who have made all of the great content you're hearing today possible. Founder Track, Kickstart, Growth Track, Friday Health Plans, Developer Track, Quizlet, Product Track, Palantir, Designer Track, Battery 621 in the Public Works, People Track, Exactly, and Spotlight event sponsor, Strat Labs. Our headline event sponsors are bringing the excitement this week. Thank you to B-Side Fun, Colorado Public Radio, Comcast, Coors Brewing Company, Denver Pavilions, Entrepreneurship at the University of Denver, Gusto, JP Morgan Chase, Method, Moss Adams, Pine Insurance, Promontory Mortgage Path, Red Bull Basement, Southwest, Tattered Cover, and VF Venture Foundry. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors listed on the screen. Please say thank you to these companies as you enjoy our hybrid Denver Startup Week. And don't forget to use hashtag #DenStartupWeek to share your experience and moments of inspiration on social media. Have a great week.
Hello everyone, welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm John, the Spotlight Track Chair and member of the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Thank you for joining us for the 10th anniversary of Denver Startup Week. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a space where attendees can connect, learn, and grow regardless of age, gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, or sexual orientation. A special thank you to our sponsors for their support in helping us keep DSW free and accessible for all. Thank you for joining us and have a great week.
Hi, everyone. My name is Connor Swanson. I am part of the organizing chair committee for Denver Startup Week. I've been involved for going on 10 years now and very excited to be still going at it this year for our decade in performance. In addition to my responsibilities with the developer track, going into year 5 of something that I've helped put together called the Denver Startup Week Ambassador Program. In normal times, starting back in 2017, we actually created the Ambassador Program as a great way to help connect Denver with other communities for individuals looking at Denver as a potential home for their next professional opportunity, or as a place where they might start a company or move a company, or for somebody that was potentially looking at investing in or learning more about the ecosystem. The Ambassador Program was a great way to select and fly in 50 people from around the country that came to experience all that was happening in Colorado and get to learn more about the ecosystem. With the evolution of what's happened with the pandemic, we've now shifted to a virtual format this year, but with aspirations of sharing a lot of the same great content so that people that are thinking about Colorado or wanting to learn more about it can do so. I'm really excited for this panel discussion. I'm going to be turning things over to Zaw, who will be leading it and introducing you to the other panelists. Thanks so much.
I'm sorry, I was so impressed with what Jenna was doing that I couldn't I couldn't find my mute button. It's well done. Why don't we do a quick round of intros and then we'll kind of get into it. I don't know, team. What do y'all think? Maybe alphabetical by first name? Self-organizing?
I'm trying to go I think I first.
Yeah, I think I've been there. Hi everyone, I'm Bijal. I work at Guild Education and I'm this Chief Experience Officer. I lead our product operations and technology teams that basically help unlock our overall user experience.
Hey, I'm Brent Barkman. I recently moved out to Colorado in March from Los Angeles, having spent 6 years with sunny and 72-degree weather all the time. I thought I'd get some seasons and some weather and some trees and mountains. I started a company called Dream Team. So we recently raised our pre-seed. Our Range Ventures here locally led. We build mission control software for software teams and organizations that help them maximize productivity by organizing all the data across all the SaaS tools, OKRs, goals, team, and execution data, all in a very engineer-centric, first principled way. So we kind of supercharge your engineering organization.
Great, and I'm Matanya Horowitz. I'm the founder and CEO here at AMP Robotics. We are using robotics and artificial intelligence to solve some of the primary challenges of the recycling business. A lot of people think, well, may not know a lot about recycling, but really it's driven by the economics of different commodities. So plastics and metals and paper that you put in your recycling bin. The challenge is sorting that stuff back out is pretty hard, and our technology significantly reduces the cost of splitting that stuff out.
And I'm Zaw. I will say Matanya has probably the coolest office slash demo that I've ever been into, because they actually have a full recycling line inside of their office that they do a lot of the testing on for the computer vision and the AI, and it's pretty cool. So I'm super
cool.
happy. Yeah, it's cool, right? Happy to have all of you here. My name is Zaw Thet. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Xer. We also do computer vision, but we do it for motion, focused around digital health and fitness. And so you've actually got a very interesting spread of companies here, all the way from, you know, Brent being at the pre-seed to us being at the seed kind of Series A. I don't even know how much money you guys have raised, but I think you're at the B now or something close to that. And then that's right? And then Guild and Bijal, who's now a unicorn, I think, correct? Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so you have the whole kind of spread of experiences for why people are here in Denver. Maybe let's start with that. Let's just talk about, like, why are people here in the Front Range? I know we're all located, you know, somewhere within 30 minutes of each other. Bijal, do you want to start us off? Because I think you were originally here with Ibotta, but then obviously you went over to Guild. But why is Guild here in Denver? Like, what's the rationale for that?
So I think two things. One is our founder and CEO, Rachel Carlson, grew up in Denver. She went to East High School, and I think always had aspirations and ambitions of, you know, making sure that she could continue to raise a family and be located in Colorado. I think it's near and dear to her heart. The second thing is that I think she's also in the business of proving people wrong in a really great way. And I think that thought was that it would be really great to come out to Colorado, help put it on the map and show that you could build pretty meaningful businesses that impacted things nationally and globally while being located in Denver. And so I was really excited to take on that opportunity. And I think it has been a pretty tremendous experience. It's pretty unique to build a company in Denver, to have the seasons, as Brent mentioned, and to be able to take part in kind of the outdoor and the lifestyle that Colorado provides. And at the same time, having been here and seeing you know, the days from Ibotta through Guild, seeing how much Denver in particular has transformed and the Front Range has transformed, and being a part of that growth story, even personally, is super exciting.
And what brought you here to Denver? Was it originally just work, or was it something else?
I came kicking and screaming, and there are other, I feel like I have other friends who say that same thing, but I came kicking and screaming because my husband got a job at a startup that was being incubated inside of DaVita, and was really excited to take on that opportunity. And I basically was like, why would we ever live in Denver? That makes no sense. To be honest with you, I didn't know a lot about it. And I think I had preconceived notions of what it must be like to live here. And so I came, we made an agreement that we would come, and after 6 months, we would evaluate whether or not this was the right decision for us. And then I obviously was like, yeah, and then we'll just move back to San Francisco. And after 3 months of living here, I basically was like, I'm not interested in going anywhere else but for forgot to tell my husband that I had made that mental model. And then he ended up getting a job opportunity where that company was headquartered in San Francisco, and was like, guess what? We moved back to SF. And I was like, why would we ever leave? We're not going back to San Francisco. And so he had to quickly adjust and pivot his talk track with the company he now works for. But yeah, so that's my story.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Matanya, you were probably out of all of us the most local here because you did your work at CU, right? You were here for school. You left for a while. Can you kind of just give us some background on that? And then we're going to talk to Brent about the recent pandemic move.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I grew up here and went to CU Boulder for undergrad, and so went out to Los Angeles for grad school. But thinking about where to start the company, I was really looking between San Francisco and Colorado, and I had more of a network out in Colorado. I was also fortunate to win a government grant called the SBIR, and I saw that that grant would not go very far in San Francisco; it would go much further in Colorado. So it was two great reasons to start here, and a lot of the things I was worried about, and I'm sure we'll get into it around recruiting and things like this. I've really found that Colorado's been a great place to build a company, which I suspected, but it was nice to have that confirmed.
Did you start from the very beginning out here, or did you start in SF and then come back out here? Because I remember we met in SF a long time ago, which we remember.
Yeah, I actually started some of the first ideas back in LA, but I have, through the life of the company, spent a lot of time in SF raising funds and doing a bunch of different things. Yeah, I found, I mean, San Francisco is a very special place, I think, especially for venture capital and startups. And so even being based out here in Colorado, I think that it's a good idea to have high connectivity over there, even if the company's based here. So yeah, I was, when we met, I think I was flying out just about every week out to San Francisco. So I almost lived there, but the company was back here.
So full disclosure for everyone, in a I guess not necessarily a prior life, but kind of what led me to Exer, I actually started and ran a venture capital fund called Signia, which we did early stage investing, or we do early stage investing. Now on its third fund, about almost 100 million per each fund. And I actually passed on Matanya and regret it, but
no hard feelings. Yeah.
but did send a very nice follow-up email, which I think we had to like look up for posterity's sake to make sure that was there, because I didn't understand there was trash and recycling business. But all kudos to you for kicking butt and doing so great. Brent, you're the most recent transplant to the Front Range, and you guys are out in Golden, I think, right? Is that right?
About to be. We're actually out in Conifer area right now, but moving this weekend to get a little closer.
And what brought you out here?
Yeah, so my wife and I got married last year, quit our jobs, meaning to have a very different 2020, like I think we all did. But kind of very quickly after spending all that time at home, knew LA wasn't the place for us. We were thinking about kids. I think LA is fun in your 20s, but when you grow up, it just becomes a pain. And so honestly, it was kind of serendipity. So pandemic kind of limited our exploring. So we kind of, through the internet, we're looking at cities. We didn't have anything super high on our list. And then I have family out here. So we spent the holidays out here with my sister in Winter Park. And on the drive back, it was kind of just like, should we just try it out? And then the sort of benefit of our flexibility, 3 months later, we were here. And so we rented this place out of the mountains thinking, COVID, we had our California mindsets on. Just go get a sort of remote place and enjoy nature for a while. Kind of the opposite of what we had in LA. And I think within a week of being here, we decided that the test had passed. Maybe we weren't going to live in the mountains forever, but we're definitely going to live in Colorado for a very long time. So now we're just, getting closer to the city and getting settled.
When I caught up with Brent last time, I was giving him a lot of props for his T-Rex head that's sitting behind there. And, it's like, especially like, you got Dinosaur Ridge and you got all the cool fossils that are out here. But Brent informed me that he's had this since he was 22 or 23. So
bachelor days, it's relegated to my office now.
It's a good talking piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell my story really quickly. It's probably more similar to Matanya in that, so I was doing the venture thing for a while. It had been 10 years. I basically had spent since 98 was when I first came out to the Bay Area to go to Stanford. So I've been there a long, long time, and had just gotten to the point where it felt like, San Francisco had kind of become, not a great place for kids, to be honest. And at the time, and now I have a 4 and a 7-year-old boys. There's a very high likelihood they will come storming in here at some point, even though they know that daddy's on a call. But at that point 2 years ago, so we moved out here September 2019, so right before the pandemic hit. And it was a similar calculation, which was, we knew, we were working in AI and computer vision. There were some really good folks out here that were working on that. We knew, raising a seed round of 2.5 million, it was going to last us a lot longer out here and give us the time to kind of do the R&D that we needed. And one of my other co-founders was out here. And so we've been flying out here basically every 6 months or so, as a family, to go skiing and do other stuff. And then once we decided to start the business back in 2019, we've been out here every month. And so just really fell in love with, not just the lifestyle, but also the mix of being able, I think Chris from Range says it really good. You can still be out here and be super ambitious and build billion-dollar companies, but you can also have a really active lifestyle and a really fun lifestyle. And just got lucky with the pandemic. Like, we were here for a couple months before the pandemic hit, and it's just been phenomenal. So really, really loving our time here. All right, so let's get to the meat of what probably most of the audience here wants to hear, which is, what is it about being in Denver or being in the Front Range that's either good or bad? Let's just get to recruiting, because I think that's the challenge that 99% of companies have these days. Maybe Matanya, we can start with you and then go to Vijal.
Yeah, I think Denver has some distinct advantages. I think if you're a high growth startup and things are going pretty well, there's some fantastic startups out here in Denver, but there's in absolute terms, there's less than, say, out of the Bay Area and things like that. So I think it is easy to get a lot of attention, and then easy to sort of have a lot of presence and get great people. At the same time, I've at least found in San Francisco, there's a lot more executives and a lot of people who have sort of seen a startup through its life cycle, and lots of people know people who have seen startups through the full life cycle. And so there's a lot of know-how and a lot of kind of more senior talent that I think is a little bit more readily available in the Bay Area. But we have also found over the last year, maybe last 2 years, is there's a strong desire to move out here. And so have been able to I think, get some great talent here in Colorado. And then where there's just a less experience with sort of this type of company, we've been able to attract it. And it's all worked out quite well from my perspective.
And just to set the table stakes for everyone, are y'all, I mean, I would say I was in your office pre-pandemic, but are you fully remote? Are you hiring remote? Are you thinking about hiring locally? Like, how do you think about that? And then I'll throw the question to everyone else, because I think that matters for everyone.
Yeah, for us, so we sell robots all around the world. We engineer these things, we build them, we install them, we service them. So there are many roles where we think it's really key that people are here. And so we'll relocate people, we will focus on local talent. There's other roles commercially or more in the service organization where people will be traveling a lot anyway, and then they'll have a more distributed team. So a lot of our commercial team is distributed, a lot of our engineering fabrication teams are here in Colorado, so roughly 2/3 or 3/4 here. But most people end up working from home. During the pandemic, we've found that to be very effective.
Are you back hybrid at all, or are you still mainly remote?
Yeah, hybrid, but mostly remote still. Yeah, I'm actually here in our lovely office right now.
Very cool. Vijal, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I think I'll give you a different perspective, I think, than Matanya as it relates to some of the challenges we faced. So I will just double down on the fact that I think we've been able to attract really great talent in Denver, and as Denver and the Front Range just continue to find its place on the map, it's been even easier and easier to convince people to move out here. And the concerns that I probably had 8 years ago around how we're going to find the right people are not necessarily the same concerns today. One of the things that does continue to be a challenge as it relates to the market out here is an appreciation and understanding for the value that startup equity can drive. We've had to do a lot of education and educating of our employees, as well as prospective employees, on the value of equity and how to understand that as it relates to their total compensation package, which in a place like New York or San Francisco, it's kind of part of the DNA. People are like clamoring for more equity in a company, are willing to sacrifice a little bit on cash to make up for it on long-term gain in, you know, value as it relates to equity, et cetera. And we've had to do a ton of work to educate folks on that value. And one of the things that I think is really important that needs to happen in Colorado more broadly is that we do need to see more exits, so people understand the liquidity value that gets created from those opportunities, so that people understand what it means to have equity in a company, you know, or options that you can then exercise and have a vested stake in the company, and the type of multiple or return that can create. And so I do believe there's still a lot of educating to do on that front.
I think you saw a lot of laughs and head nods because we're all dealing with that. Go ahead, Matanya. You gonna say
Yeah,
something?
if I could just tag along to that, that has absolutely been our experience as well. I think these places on the coast, you know, a friend or a friend of a friend in the startup ecosystem will have had an exit that was meaningful. I think very few people in Colorado know someone who've had a meaningful exit, and so it's all a little bit more abstract. And but the value of equity is real, and yeah, very well said. Takes a lot of education. So I completely agree and underline what was just said.
Yeah.
I'm pre-seed. I'm selling dreams. So yeah. So I was the one interesting. So we actually have an interesting sort of comparison. So we have 6 of us, 4 here and 2 in Seattle. So we're building this hub model, all remote for now, but are going to the office hopefully sooner than later. Part of the move out here was like, can I hire, you know, at least enough people out here to have a meaningful presence? And what I found more recently was that I think Denver's a bit of an untapped talent market. And the reason is you've had all of these people moving out here for lifestyle reasons, you know, over the last decade as Denver's been just growing as a city, that have been working in the same jobs, kind of doing whatever. And it's almost like you can come out here and pitch the new thing. Oh, it's exciting. We're bringing a little bit of like West Coast DNA, you know, to the mountains. And there's an angle there where it's just people that haven't been heavily recruited because so much of hiring has been focused like in the office on the coast, that there is still a market here. The flip side of that, though, is what we found anyway, comparing Seattle to here, is because people have been coming out here for lifestyle, it was impossible to hire in the summer because everyone had gotten vaccinated and was like in the mountains or like hiking or biking or doing something that was not focused on work and definitely not focused on changing jobs. And there's been an almost like immediate shift that I've noticed over the past couple of weeks where people that were like, don't talk to me till the fall are like, okay, I've like done my summer thing. Like, let's talk about what you're doing. I'm interested. Like, you know, let's see where it goes. Compared with Seattle, which has such a deep talent pool from the Amazon and Microsoft world that like, you know, there's always people, you know, that was kind of that was a steady stream, whereas it was more cyclical or seasonal, I guess is the way to put it here.
Yeah, I mean, the seasonal thing is real, and just wait till ski season starts, Brett, because then you're gonna have
I learned about powder days recently.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have a whole different set of issues on Fridays when everyone's trying to beat traffic to the mountains. I mean, I would say as you look at the market, and I think Bajal had a great point around the equity component. We do a lot of education for our team, and we're not big, right? We're 15 people, growing to 30 probably in the next 6 months or so. But the equity component is really difficult to kind of get across to folks, and in some ways they don't even necessarily value it, even though we might be giving them a huge, what we consider for that band to be a huge grant. And it just kind of gets left in the dust in some ways. And so I do think as you know, momentum continues to grow across across the Front Range. Like we'll see more of that. People will understand it better. But yeah, I mean, one of the beauties of this place, right, is that you talk to your neighbors or people that you're next to, and they don't even talk about work, right? It's not like, oh, what company do you work for? Which VC fund did you pitch today? Which NFT or crypto token are you investing in? It's very much like, it's just good. I grew up in Wisconsin, so with Jenna, ironically, which was totally random, who's doing a phenomenal job here. And it's just one of those things where we talk about sports, we talk about weather, we talk about real estate, but it's anything but work. I don't even think my neighbors have any idea what we do or what I do. Maybe they've seen one or two things, but that's kind of it. So it's a very different kind of community. Obviously it's very family friendly if you have kids. And it's just one of those things where, the equity component doesn't become a big deal for people. And I don't know how to solve that or how to fix that. But question for the panelists, what percentage of your team, and we'll start with Brent maybe and go backwards, is a transplant? So meaning coming from the coast, because at Exer, we're about 50% transplant at this point, meaning not just the coast, but also we've pulled people from the Midwest, we pulled people from the South, we've pulled people from the coast, and they've all kind of moved out here. But I know you're still small, Brent, so the percentages are a little different.
Maybe I'll state it in absolutes, it's maybe more representative, but two of our folks have been here for a large number of years. I hope they're not watching because I can't remember if the person who's been here longest was from here or not. And then myself most recently, and then our front-end engineer, she moved here I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. So fairly recent. So part of the she skis, it was like the perfect place to come. She's out in the mountains near Boulder, just the perfect place to be. So more recent. So I guess almost half and half. Probably I think 3 of the 4 of us are true transplants.
Natanya, how about you?
I think these are guesses, but I think maybe 40% of our team or so, maybe a little less, are from outside Colorado, but we've relocated maybe half of them, and then the rest are, still remote. They might be in different stages of coming out. That's probably wrong, but directionally right.
Jaw, what about you?
At a company level, I have no idea. We have 1,000+ employees, but so I couldn't tell you. I would say that like 60% of our workforce is based in Colorado. Someone's going to yell at me later because I have that stat wrong. So let's say between 60 and 70% are located somewhere here in Colorado. And then for my own leadership team, for the folks who are in Colorado, everyone except one person is a transplant to Colorado.
Where do you put 1,000 people? Where is your office?
We have, so I said 60 to 70%. So I think we're asking where I put 600 or 700 people. We work in at 16th and, oh my God, Tremont. So downtown in Republic Plaza. But we have a hybrid. We also have a very hybrid leaning remote workforce since the pandemic. And so I was in the office earlier today and it's probably, I don't know, 20% occupied.
Yeah, no, I think that's what we're seeing is we were just thinking about looking for new office space and we're like, do we really need that much bigger of an office? Not really. Even if we doubled the team, we're probably going to be okay. Matanya has robots, so it's a different deal for you, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we don't count the robots in our employment stats though, so.
So they must get like a percentage square foot per robot though, like you think about sort of like a work area.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about fundraising, because I know that's obviously an issue that a lot of people think about. Obviously, most of us, obviously Guild is the most well-funded out of us. But if you think about sort of all of the rest of it, what are the challenges, that you see with fundraising? Bijal, I don't think you have any challenges with fundraising right now, but do you want to weigh in first and then we can go?
Yeah, you're probably right in that we're in a market and an environment where what Guild is doing, we provide education as a benefit to very large employers, for those of you who don't know. And so we happen to sit in a space and a time, given attraction and retention issues of talent, of like we're meeting the market's need at a given moment in time. So I agree with you. But I don't think the early days were like that. And I think sitting in Denver, it did require us going to the coast a lot to have conversations with, potential VCs, and Adam and Chris at Range, part of the reason and their thesis around building Range was so that they could put some footprints and lay the groundwork for having even more capital inside of Colorado and investing in Colorado companies. And I think that's like a really great thing that they're doing, so that you don't have to keep going to the coast. And so we can drive more economic value inside of the state. But in the early days, it was hard. I still think, going back to the prior point you made, Zaw, like your neighbors not knowing who you are. I think because of how the environment and kind of the culture of the city is like, people don't think about venture capital. They don't know about startups. They could really care less what you do. I think most of my neighbors have no idea what I do. And actually it's fine. It's totally fine. And so I think that, but because that exists, it's not, it's not in like the water here. And so it does require going to other places and maybe working harder to make known what you're doing, what space you work in, why you're relevant, and what you're doing to differentiate yourself. I think sometimes it's also hard to get an inkling of what's happening in the competitive landscape, especially in the early days, because when you're in the thick of it, you're like, oh, your company does this. Do you know about this company who does that? And you kind of miss, you don't get as much of that here either, which might be good because sometimes competition's a distraction. And so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Brent, you raised here, but you also raised from West Coast funds?
Yeah, so Range led, but then Aspenwood, formerly Humber Windblad, a West Coast firm, they were our second institutional money, so we kind of mixed it.
And was that when you came out here? I mean, I think there was a prior relationship there because the Range, at least one of the, well, actually both of the Range folks, both Adam and Chris, are both transplants technically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Actually, the way I got introduced to them was I was at Snap before this, and a friend and colleague is an LP in Range and introduced me to them. And then it was one of those, I don't know what you call love at first sight with the VC, but it was one of those things where it clicked and they got it, and I like them. Funny thing, Signia actually passed on my pre-seed, so there's that too.
But I wasn't there.
You were not there, yes.
I never saw Guild. That's my fault.
What I've noticed has been really interesting, especially as we're starting to think about what a seed round looks like for us. Like huge fan, obviously everything that Range and the community they're trying to build here. I'm trying to be a part of it, obviously. Stuff like this Denver Startup Week, Colorado Venture Summit last week, like just getting getting excitement and community and buzz going. The problem that I've noticed, or it's not necessarily a problem, it's a decision on path, which is really interesting, is the value, like the crazy capital markets we're in, West Coast valuations and our coastal valuations and non-coastal valuations, wildly different places, right? Unit economics of funds, fund sizes are very different life stages. And so it's almost like there's this identity crisis of, do you stay off the coast and kind of have a more sane trajectory, or do you just like light the rocket fuel on fire and just go for it and crash early or get, or go? And so it's an interesting, I don't know the answer, just it's kind of top of mind as I think about like fundraising here versus fundraising on the coast, with that, how they compare.
Absolutely. Matanya, you are one of the OGs of bringing West Coast investors to the Range. You want to talk a little bit about that experience? I'm talking about the A specifically.
Yeah. Let's see. So, so my experience was talked to a couple of VCs very early on, all the way back in 2015, and I think there was some, a real question mark about for VCs on the West Coast at least, you know, shouldn't you move the startup over to California? Doesn't that make more sense? As we got into some of our later rounds, the A and the B, I've just seen that totally disappear. I think not just because of our stage, but people have seen that you can really take advantage of the best parts of what the coasts have, but you don't have to be there. But yeah, I found, I mean, Colorado, I think is making great strides. There are some great VCs here, but the size of that world on the coast is so much larger, and so I think it's really essential that you're getting out there, getting that exposure, and making sure that that world knows your startup. So yeah, we have investors both on the West Coast and from New York, and they've been fantastic partners in helping build the business. But for a long time, I was flying out to San Francisco, pitching constantly, trying to build my network out in San Francisco. And it took a lot of work. I did get to United 1K status on it. So it does have its benefits, but I just see it as essential. Yeah, like Brent said, I think there can be a real sharp disconnect in terms that can manifest in valuation. It can manifest in control terms. It can manifest in preferences. And stuff like that. And I just found when we started getting offers from firms on the coast, Colorado investors would kind of move to get closer or match those terms. But when I was at the beginning, just pitching people in Colorado, we weren't getting those types of terms. And so it's simply, even if you'd like to create, I think, focus on Colorado firms, I think there's a real advantage to at least understanding the market out there, pulling in data and making sure the firm is well known. It's just, yeah, the ecosystem is larger and it's been developing for longer. So,
yeah, and I think, you know, what we see is this natural evolution in that there are now a set of great seed funds out here, right? At kind of the earlier stages. But as you get up to the A or the B levels, there's just not as much, right? And so from a fund size standpoint, from a fund diversity standpoint, you know, what they're sometimes looking for is just very different. And there's just, you know, they don't have as much capital to put around versus the, I don't know, whatever 1,000 people that Andreessen now employs at this point.
Yeah, I think
that was last week.
That's a great point.
I think it's doubled.
But I think there's a key point in there where we're in a bit of an unusual industry for venture capital in recycling, and you know, pretty much you know, very few firms in Colorado were interested in this kind of world where, you know, we're deploying hardware. There's market concentration amongst the incumbents, and people sort of don't know how much of our world is you know, municipal contracting and things like this. You know, most of the VCs we found on the coast also weren't comfortable with that type of business, but that ecosystem is so much larger. We did find the investors who were interested in that, and they had seen it with the rose because they were involved in the clean tech world, which has some analogs to what we're doing. And so, you know, I think sort of the number of funds and the size of funds also ends up being beneficial in terms of you'll find VCs with more interest, you know, through sheer numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. If
Sorry,
there are, yo, please go ahead. No, please go ahead.
I think more VCs are interested in diversifying where their capital is located. And so you also see like proactive desires for them to want to come to cities like Denver, meet the entrepreneurs. I remember right before the pandemic, there was a Cowboy Ventures came out and wanted, and I think Connor, you might have been at the at the dinner, but trying to get a group of entrepreneurs together so that they could meet the folks in the community because they wanted to diversify where they made investments. General Catalyst has done the same. And so I think there's a desire from the VCs on the coast to be investing capital in a variety of different places across the US.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Well, definitely Miami and Austin. I feel like in some ways we've gotten a little overlooked here, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Okay, we got about 5 minutes left before we wrap. So I would like to know, Natanya, this is kind of I don't know if this qualifies for you, the most Coloradan thing that you now do after living in here or coming back here? Bijal, you want to start? Since yeah, let's start with you. What's the most Coloradan thing you do now?
I don't know. I'm like physically active. I feel like that's a very Colorado thing to do. I felt like when I lived in the Bay or even in Boston, you would like talk about getting outside and being active, but then, you know, the weather would happen or work would happen. And here you're just kind of peer pressured into talking about like, oh, did you go on a hike? Where'd you go on a hike? Oh, did you walk around the lake? Which lake did you walk around? And so it's like a good kind of peer pressure, but I would say like being outside is the most Colorado thing that I do.
100%. Hey, 300 days of sunshine a year. Looking pretty good. Brent, you're the newest transplant. What about you?
This one's easy. So I'm Canadian, so I finally get to drink beer again. I just love the beer culture out here in Southern California, LA specifically. It's CrossFit and kale. Here it's CrossFit and beer.
Yeah, finish a hike, go have a beer.
Yep.
Absolutely. Matanya, I don't know. You're a local-ish, so
Yeah. So I'm going to stay on brand. I'll say what I do is I recycle. But camping, definitely camping. I've just been getting out a ton, and I have a 1-year-old daughter, and she loves camping, and so we just get out whenever we can.
oh, congratulations. Yeah, during the pandemic, we last year we rented an RV and toured Colorado for I think 2.5
that's
or
awesome.
3 weeks. I'm not sure we'd ever do that again with 2 little kids, but it was it was fun. I would say for me, what is the most on-brand thing? Well, we ski, but I've been skiing my whole life. It's just the mountains are a lot closer than driving 7 hours to Tahoe from SF. I did start bird hunting 2 weeks ago because I got a pandemic puppy, and he is a Springer Spaniel that just was bred for this, and I have no interest in hunting, even though I grew up in Wisconsin. But to see him out there running around the fields, finding birds and being so happy feels pretty on brand when I like show up in my Chevy Suburban and all the F-150s are running around the bird track. So lots to do. All right, we got 2 minutes. If there are questions from the audience, great. If not, any parting thoughts? Maybe why start your company or bring your company to Colorado? Bijal, raise your hand.
I actually had one anecdote I wanted to share, just because I think for anyone considering it, even on a personal level, what really shocked me from being in Seattle, I was in London for a brief stint, LA for a long time. Because we were pre-seed, a lot of the diligence for my company was just talk to the LPs that were former tech execs that had domain expertise. And so I did that, got along great, had great conversations, and then did the typical like, hey, why don't we, grab a beer when you're here? Like, let me help you get situated. It's great, the cordiality that you get from these types of things. I was shocked when every single person I talked to followed up with me within a month of me arriving to say, hey, are we getting that beer? And then we actually did it. Or, hey, there's a big snowstorm coming. I have a truck and tools if you need it. I think that person didn't realize I was Canadian, but but it was just the quality of people was shocking and so refreshing. So anyone sort of thinking about it from a who you're working with, like in the trenches every day, and just on a personal, as a place to live, like it was amazing. Just the step function increase and literally how great everyone is.
100%. Bijal, you raise your hand. You got to go now.
No, sorry, I did. I had a technology fail. I was trying to see if there are any questions and I hit the wrong. Anyways, I will just say I moved here and have never looked back. And so I'm not really sure what you're waiting for, but it's a great place to live.
Tanya, over to you. Last but not least.
I mean, I think we talked about some of the advantages, like efficient use of capital, and the ability, I think, to be differentiated. And I think if you use some of these things wisely, it can be a competitive advantage to be building here. You just have to realize what your advantages are if you're located in Colorado. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, no, when we moved 2 years ago, there was a conversation with my wife very early on, which is like, are you crazy? A, you're going to go back to being an entrepreneur and leave this cushy VC life. And B, we're gonna go to Denver. Thankfully, we've been out in Vail a bunch as a family, so that was a little easier. But there was a list of kind of 10 demands, and so we rented a house when we first got out here because we didn't know kind of where we wanted to live, and then about a year ago, we're just like, nope, we're gonna buy a house, and we're here. Like, this is it. We're here for a while, so I feel like that's a common thread. I've yet to meet a single person who has moved from somewhere else to Denver and then moved back out. Never. I just haven't met one. So, okay. I think that's all we got. Thank you so much, panelists, for your time. Appreciate you. Jenna, how do you do Jenna and sign?
I don't know, but she's awesome.
She's so good. That was great work. Thank you. And yeah, enjoy Startup Week, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And we'll, I think all of us are here as resources for if you're folks that are just starting out or you're looking for cool startups to join. So feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'll be in touch. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you, Zaw.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.